The massive alien warship Pride of Krell drifted through the darkness of space. Its hull gleamed with the light of distant stars. Commander Vex stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed over his chest. He stared at the star map floating before him. "Sir, we are approaching the Forbidden Zone," said Lieutenant Tor, his voice trembling slightly. Vex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Forbiddens? By whom?" "Those primitive humans. They barely left their planet 500 years ago. The Krell Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds. They had crushed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. The idea that a young species like humans could threaten them was laughable. But, sir, the Galactic Council issued 17 warnings about human space," Tor continued. "Every ship that enters never returns. Superstition and fear." Vex spat. "The Council grows weak. They fear shadows and stories. We are the Krell. We fear nothing." The ship's sensors began to beep. They had crossed into human territory. The space looked empty, peaceful even. No defense stations. No patrol ships. Just the quiet void and a few distant planets. "See?" Vex gestured at the empty space. "Nothing. The humans probably destroyed themselves with their own primitive weapons. Set course for their home system. Earth, they call it." As the ship moved deeper into human space, strange things began to happen. First, their long-range communications went silent. Then, the navigation system started showing incorrect data. The stars themselves seemed to be in the wrong places. "Sir, something is wrong with our instruments," reported the science officer Drac. "It's just interference." "Continue forward," Vex ordered. 3 hours later, they saw it. A single human ship, no bigger than one of their shuttles. It sat directly in their path, unmoving. "One ship?" Vex laughed again. "They send one tiny ship to stop us?" "Destroy it," the weapons officer fired. The energy beams shot through space, powerful enough to crack a moon in half. They hit the human ship, and nothing happened. The beams simply disappeared, absorbed like water into sand. The human ship sent a single message. "This is Captain Adams of the Terran Defense Force. You have been warned 17 times. This is number 18. Turn back now, or accept the consequences." Vex's purple face turned darker with rage. "All weapons fire. Reduce them to atoms." Every weapon on the Pride of Krell fired at once. Missiles, energy beams, plasma cannons, enough firepower to destroy a fleet. The human ship didn't even move. It absorbed everything. Then it fired back. A single small projectile, no bigger than Vex's fist. It moved slowly, almost lazily through space. The Krell's shields, which had protected them through 100 battles, cracked like glass. The projectile passed through the hull as if it wasn't there. Hit the main reactor. The Pride of Krell, the greatest warship of the Krell Empire, began to break apart. Not exploding, but dissolving, turning into dust that scattered into the void. As escape pods launched desperately. Captain Adams sent one final message. "Warning number 18 has been delivered. There will not be a 19th. The survivors would later report that as they fled human space, they passed hundreds of derelict ships. Warships from dozens of species, all who had ignored the warnings. All reduced to floating graveyards. The galaxy finally understood. Humans weren't primitive. They weren't weak. They had technology beyond comprehension, power beyond measure. And they had chosen to use it for one purpose, to be left alone. The Galactic Council updated their maps. Human space was marked in deep red, with a simple message in every known language. "Do not enter. No exceptions. Nitrogen monoxide warnings remain." From that day forward, no ship dared to cross into human territory. The humans remained in their space, silent and separate. Sometimes, traders would meet them at the borders. The humans were friendly enough, even helpful. But they never invited anyone in. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some territories are forbidden for a reason. Captain Rex commanded the merchant vessel Star Runner, one of the few ships permitted to trade at the human border stations. He had been making this run for 20 years, and still the humans fascinated and terrified him in equal measure. The border station appeared on his screens, a small, unassuming structure floating in the neutral zone. It looked harmless, almost primitive, compared to other species' grand trading posts. But Rex knew better. He had seen what happened to those who thought humans were weak. Approaching Station 7, he announced to his mixed-species crew. Remember the rules? No scanning their technology. No questions about their defenses. No attempts to go beyond the station. His new navigator, a young Zellan named Pip, stared at the station with curiosity. It looks so small. How can they defend such a vast territory from there? They don't need to, Rex replied quietly. The station isn't for defense. It's a courtesy. As they docked, human officials greeted them warmly. Commander Stone, the station chief, was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes. He shook Rex's hand, a human custom Rex had grown to appreciate. Good to see you again. Rex, what brings you to our border today? Medical supplies from the core worlds, Rex replied. I heard you were running low. Stone's face brightened. You heard right. Come, let's discuss fair trade. As they walked through the station, Pip noticed something odd. The walls seemed to shimmer occasionally, as if they weren't completely solid. The lights were different too, not quite matching any spectrum he knew dot in the trading room. Stone offered them Earth coffee, a beverage that had become legendary throughout the galaxy. As they negotiated, Pip couldn't contain his curiosity. Commander Stone, why do humans stay isolated? You could join the Galactic Council. Share your technology ... double quotes. Rex tensed, ready to apologize. But Stone just smiled sadly. We tried that once, young one. 600 years ago, when we first achieved faster-than-light travel. We reached out with open hands and hearts. He pulled up a hologram, a blue and green planet, beautiful and alive. Earth was different then. 14 billion humans lived there. We were excited to meet other species, to learn and grow together. The image changed, showing Earth ships meeting alien vessels. The first species we met were the Drax. We shared our music, our art, our history. They shared their location with their enemies. Earth was attacked within a month. The hologram showed fire raining from the sky, cities burning. We lost 7 billion people in 3 days. But we learned. We adapted. We survived. Stone's eyes had grown hard. We developed defenses. We made ourselves untouchable. But we also made a decision. We would never again trust the galaxy with our vulnerabilities. We would trade, we would be peaceful, but we would never again be victims. Pip swallowed hard. But surely not all species ... No, not all, Stone agreed. We've met good people, like Captain Rex here. But how can we tell the difference before it's too late? How many more billions should we risk to find out? The room fell silent. Then Stone smiled again, the hardness leaving his eyes. But enough dark history. You came here to trade, not to hear an old man's stories. They completed their business quickly. The humans paid fairly, even generously. As the Star Runner prepared to leave, Stone pulled Rex aside. There's something coming. Rex, we've detected massive fleet movements in the outer reaches. The hegemony is mobilizing. Rex's blood ran cold. The hegemony was the largest military alliance in the galaxy. Are they coming here? No, they've learned that lesson. But they're planning something big. Be careful out there. As the Star Runner left the station, Pip stood at the observation deck, looking back. Captain, do you think they're right to isolate themselves? Rex thought of the 7 billion dead, of the warnings ignored, of the terrible price of trust misplaced. "I don't know if they're right," he said finally, "but I understand why they do it." The station disappeared into the distance, and with it, the mysterious humans who had made themselves untouchable. The galaxy moved on around them, but always aware of their presence, the sleeping giant that chose to dream alone. Later, Rex would remember Stone's warning about the hegemony. He would remember it when the wars began, when the galaxy burned, and when only one safe harbor remained, the forbidden territory of Earth. Admiral Kron of the Hegemony Fleet stood before the assembled commanders of 50 species. The War Council had been called to address what the Hegemony leadership called the human problem. For too long, Kron's voice boomed through the chamber. Humanity has hoarded technology that could benefit the entire galaxy. They sit behind their borders while we fight and die in wars that their weapons could. And murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The hegemony had been losing their war against the swarm, a hive-minded species that consumed entire worlds. Desperation had driven them to consider the unthinkable. "We demand humanity share their defensive technology," Kron continued. "If they refuse, we will take it." General Tam, an old warrior from the Vex system, stood up. "Admiral, with respect, you're talking about attacking Earth. Every ship that has tried ... has gone alone." Kron interrupted. "But we are not alone. We are 500,000 ships strong. Even humans cannot stand against such numbers." The plan was simple. They would not enter human space directly. Instead, they would blockade it, cutting off all trade routes. Either humans would share their technology, or they would be completely isolated until they agreed. 3 days later, the massive hegemony fleet took position around human territory. They formed a sphere of ships, each one positioned to prevent any vessel from entering or leaving human space. The first human response came within an hour. A single message, broadcast on all frequencies: "Remove your ships." "This is your only warning," Kron laughed. "Let them threaten. They cannot attack us without leaving their borders." He was wrong. Space itself began to bend around the hegemony ships. Not in one place, but everywhere at once. Wherever a hegemony vessel floated, reality twisted. Ships found themselves suddenly millions of miles from their positions. Others were turned inside out, their crews finding themselves floating in space while their ships reformed around them. Backward, the humans hadn't left their space. They had reached out and touched the fabric of reality itself. Within 10 minutes, 300,000 ships were disabled, not destroyed. The humans had been merciful. But every weapon system, every engine, every life support backup had been surgically removed. The ships floated helplessly, their crews alive but completely defenseless. Then the human fleet appeared, not from their borders, but from nowhere. They simply existed where they hadn't been before. 1,000 ships, each no larger than a hegemony cruiser. Admiral Kron, his own flagship now powerless, could only watch as a human ship approached. The face that appeared on his screen was not military. It was a young human woman in civilian clothes. "Hello, Admiral. I'm Director Lisa Park from the Terran Emergency Response Division. We're here to help." "Help?" Kron sputtered. "You attacked us." "No," Lisa said patiently. "We disabled your ability to hurt yourselves or others. Now we understand you're having trouble with the swarm. We've prepared a solution." The screen changed to show a star map. The swarm's territory was marked in red, spreading like a cancer across 3 sectors. "In approximately 4 minutes, the swarm will cease to exist," Lisa said simply. "What? How?" "We've been watching them for years. They're a tragedy, a species that lost the ability to think as individuals, condemned to eternal hunger. We're going to free them." Kron watched his tactical display in shock. Across thousands of light years, simultaneously, every swarm ship stopped moving. Then they began to change. The organic vessels sprouted new growths, not weapons, but something else. We've introduced a retrograde virus into their collective consciousness, Lisa explained. It's returning them to their original state before they became a hive mind. Each drone is becoming an individual again. It was impossible. The swarm controlled billions of drones across thousands of worlds. To change them all at once, simultaneously, across such distances, ... double quotes. How? Was all Kron could ask. Lisa smiled sadly. Admiral, your species discovered fire 8,000 years ago. Ours discovered it 2 million years ago. We've had time to learn things you can't imagine. But we learned something else too. That power without wisdom leads to catastrophe. Human ships began to repair the hegemony fleet. Systems coming back online. Weapons restored. Go home, Admiral, Lisa said. The swarm threat is over. The galaxy is safe. And please, stop trying to force us to share. We share what we can safely share. The rest, the galaxy isn't ready for. As the human ships vanished as suddenly as they'd appeared, Kron realized something. The humans hadn't been hiding behind their borders out of fear. They'd been protecting the galaxy from themselves. Asterisk, the distress signal reached the human border station from deep space. Captain Adams, now promoted to sector commander, studied the message with concern. 40 million refugees, fleeing from a supernova that had consumed their home system. Their fleet of makeshift vessels was failing. They had nowhere to go. Double quotes, sir. They're requesting permission to enter human space, Lieutenant Brooks reported. They say they have no other option. Adams stood at the command center, weighing the decision. For 600 years, no alien refugees had been allowed into human territory. But 40 million lives hung in the balance. Open a channel to Earth Command, Adams ordered. The response came quickly. President Maria Wells appeared on the screen, her face grave but compassionate. We've been monitoring the situation, Commander. The Terran people have never shown hostility toward humanity. Their star went nova 3 months earlier than predicted. They had no time to evacuate properly. What are your orders, Madam President? Bring them in. But follow Protocol 7. Protocol 7, the Refugee Protocol. It had been written, but never used. Adams took a deep breath. Understood. We'll begin immediately. The human fleet moved out to meet the refugee convoy. The Terran ships were falling apart. Engines failing, life support systems critical. Children were dying on ships held together by hope and desperation. The lead Terran vessel was commanded by Elder Prima, an elderly female whose species resembled tall, graceful birds. When Adams appeared on her screen, she could barely speak through her exhaustion. Please ... We have nowhere else to go. The council worlds are full. They turned us away. We know humans forbid entry, but our children ... Elder Prima, we're going to help you, Adams said firmly. But there are conditions. Hope flickered in the Elder's multiple eyes. First, your ships will be escorted to a designated world within our territory. It's called Haven. We've been preparing it for something like this. You ... You've been preparing? For 200 years. The planet is empty, but fully terraformed. Cities are built. Infrastructure is ready. It can support up to 100 million refugees. Prima's feathers ruffled in shock. Why would you prepare such a thing? Because we remember being refugees ourselves, Elsa. We remember having nowhere to run. But there are rules. Adams outlined the conditions. The Terran would have full autonomy on Haven, but no access to human military technology. They could leave whenever they wished, but if they chose to stay, they must contribute to the planet's development. Their children would be educated in both Terran and human schools. And most importantly, Adams concluded, You must never share the location of Haven with the outside galaxy. But why such secrecy? Because if the galaxy knew we had 100 empty worlds ready for refugees, what would happen? Wars would be fought just to create refugees who could claim those worlds. We help because it's right, not because we want to encourage suffering. The evacuation took 3 days. Human medical ships worked tirelessly to save the sick and injured. Human engineers repaired what ships they could, making them comfortable for the journey. On Haven, the Terran found a paradise. Cities designed with their physiology in mind. Gardens and parks that reminded them of their lost home. Schools, hospitals, everything they needed to start again. Elder Prima stood with Adams on a hill, overlooking the main city, tears flowing from her many eyes. Why? She asked. The galaxy says humans are cold, isolated, selfish. But this is beyond generous. Adams looked at the sunset, thinking of Earth's history. Elder, we've learned that there are 2 kinds of strength. The strength to destroy, which is easy, and the strength to build, to protect, to nurture, which is much harder. We choose the harder path, but you hide it. You let the galaxy think you're monsters. It's safer that way. Fear keeps the violent away. But when someone truly needs help, when there's no other choice, we remember what it feels like to be alone and desperate. 6 months later, the Terran had settled into their new home. Their children played in the streets. Their artists painted murals of gratitude. Their scientists worked alongside human teachers to rebuild their culture the galaxy never knew. The official story was that the Terran fleet had been lost in space. But on Haven, 40 million souls lived and thrived, protected by humanity's secret kindness. And in the human archives, another page was added to the book of species they had saved. The Terran were the 17th. They would not be the last. Asterisk. Ambassador David Turner stood before the Galactic Council for the first time in 600 years. Humanity had requested this hearing, and every species had sent their highest representatives. The chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Honored delegates, David began, his voice carrying across the vast hall. Humanity has maintained its isolation for 6 centuries. Today, we wish to explain why. He activated a hologram that filled the chamber, a timeline stretching back millions of years. We are not what you think we are, David said simply. Humanity is older than you know. The timeline showed Earth, but not as they knew it. Multiple extinction events, each followed by rapid evolution. But something was different about the pattern. 65 million years ago, our ancestors were not the mammals you've been taught about. We were already here, already sentient. We have died and been reborn on Earth 17 times. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Each time, we evolved differently. Each time, we learned. Our genetic memory carries the experiences of 17 different civilizations. That's why we advanced so quickly in your eyes. We weren't learning. We were remembering. The hologram changed, showing vast underground cities hidden beneath Earth's surface. The Earth you see, the humans you know, are just our current iteration. Beneath our world lie the remains of civilizations that conquered stars when your species were still forming. Admiral Kron, present as the hegemony representative, stood up. This is impossible. Our archaeologists have found no evidence ... double quotes, because we hid it, David replied. After our 12th iteration was destroyed by alien visitors, we learned to hide our true nature. We let each new version of ourselves grow naturally, only intervening when extinction threatened. But why tell us now? Asked the council president. David's expression grew serious. Because something is coming. Our deep space monitors have detected an object moving toward this galaxy. It's not from here. It's from beyond the void, and it's been traveling for millions of years. The hologram shifted to show the edge of the galaxy, And beyond it, something massive approaching. It's a harvest ship, David continued. We've seen them before, in our third iteration. They move from galaxy to galaxy, consuming all life, all energy. It will arrive in 50 years. Silence fell over the chamber. This is why we've maintained our isolation, David explained. Not out of fear or hatred, but because we've been preparing. Every world we've terraformed, every weapon we've developed, every shield we've built, it's all been for this moment. He showed them the true extent of human territory, not just the small section they knew, but thousands of hidden systems, millions of ships, technologies beyond imagination. We offer the galaxy a choice, David said. Accept us as we are, work with us, and we'll share the technology you need to survive. Or maintain the status quo, and we'll defend the galaxy anyway, but from the shadows. Elder Prima of the Terran stood. My people live on a human world. They've shown us nothing but kindness. I vote for alliance. One by one, species began to voice their support. Even Admiral Kron, humbled by his earlier defeat, agreed. But understand, David warned, the technology we share will change you. Your societies, your cultures, everything will evolve. Are you prepared for that? The council president answered for them all. If the alternative is extinction, then yes. Over the following years, humanity slowly opened its borders. Teachers went to other worlds, sharing carefully selected knowledge. Human engineers helped build defensive platforms around vulnerable planets. But the biggest change was psychological. The galaxy had always seen humans as newcomers, aggressive and isolated. Now they understood. Humans were the ancient guardians, the ones who had survived everything the universe could throw at them. When the harvest ship finally arrived, the galaxy was ready. Human ships led the charge, their impossible weapons tearing through defenses that should have been impenetrable. Allied fleets supported them, using new technologies that bent reality itself. The battle lasted 7 days. When it ended, the harvest ship was not just destroyed, but erased from existence. Its atoms scattered across dimensions dot in the aftermath. As the galaxy celebrated, David stood once again before the council. We've shown you what we are, he said. Ancient, powerful, and protective. But we're also still human. We laugh, we love, we hope. We're not your gods or your monsters. We're your neighbors. And finally, after 600 years, we're ready to come home. The borders opened fully that day, not just to trade, but to friendship. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful beings are those who choose not to use their power. And humanity? They finally had what they'd always wanted, not to be feared or worshipped, but simply to be part of something bigger than themselves. The warning signs came down. Terran space was no longer forbidden. It was home to all who came in peace. Epilogue years later, children of a dozen species would learn about the time when human space was forbidden. They would laugh at the old fears, unable to imagine their human teachers and friends as anything but kind. But in the depths of human archives, the Watchers remained vigilant, because the universe had taught them one lasting truth. Peace must be guarded, trust must be earned, and strength must always be ready. The galaxy was at peace. But humanity would never forget the price of that peace, paid in billions of lives across 17 iterations of their species. They had been the monsters in the dark, so that others could live in the light. Now, they could finally step into that light themselves. Asterisk.